It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
Okay, and why is this unethical? I don't see what's unethical about this.
I didn't say unethical. I said, speaking of ethics, people can draw their own conclusions, but go ahead.
So, of course, listen, within the House of Market Explainer, we have different views on a lot of things, which is the whole point of doing a show. So it's not just two chunky men cozying up to each other and going, don't we agree on everything? So, I mean, this social media startup Gettr, and let me just say this as Gettr was created by someone from Trump world, Jason Miller. They just fired a bunch of their IT staff, their cybersecurity teams. It would appear to some people that they're having financial problems, despite the fact that they're backed by a exiled Chinese billionaire. Right? Lots of questions there. China, but not really. I mean, so
okay. You mean two executives and their entire IT cybersecurity staff?
Yeah.
Entire is a key word here. Gettr, a social media platform.
Correct.
That Danny said earlier is a competitor to Twitter. No, it's not. Not even in the same realm of... Okay.
What I meant was, when I said competitor to Twitter, here's what I meant. I simply meant that it's like Twitter. That's all I meant.
It is like Twitter. Okay, yes, you're right. It is a platform that is like Twitter, that hung its hat when we all know when certain people got kicked off Twitter last year.
Yeah.
That they wanted an alternative.
Wrongfully.
Gettr tried to become that alternative.
Wrongfully. Yeah.
It was whatever. Gettr tried to become that alternative, and it never really came to fruition.
Right.
And now you turn around and you wonder why a competitor that hung its hat on something so what's the word? Touchy, politicized, right? Whatever. How it was going to run long term, and it can't, right? At the end of the day, you still have to have a platform that can sell advertising consistently, make money consistently to be able to grow, and they can't.
Right, and MyPillow, you can't just sell all your ads to MyPillow and every company Mike Lindell owns, who's a personal friend, by the way. We're from the same town. No, let me just say this much. My guess... TMTG corporate. What didn't their reverse merger already happen? I don't know. But they're going to acquire this. That's what this is, right?
I don't think this is a company that even should be acquired by anyone. I don't. Okay. To me, this is not a company. This is
no. I agree with that.
Because the people leaving, you've got people leaving. Because they hired experienced people, right? Security, IT. Gettr is not it was just put together really cheaply and it's awful. Gettr built a platform. They did. They built a platform. They built a decent platform, right? And then they turned around and made it something that it wasn't, hoping that whim would continue, and it didn't. Bad for them. However...
Hey,
you turn around and say, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, you have people leaving the company that's saying things like, quote, I've never seen a company this poorly run from business operations in my 25 years of cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, coming from someone who was banned from Twitter, for making a joke that is now... a guy just went on Joe Rogan, an Indian comedian went on Joe Rogan and made the argument that I made on Twitter, which got me banned, which was Apu is not a bad character, but that's neither here nor there. This podcast isn't about me airing my personal grievances with Twitter. But I understand. Listen, there's an entire business model of, hey, this company won't let you do X, Y, and Z. We will. Right?
But then they turned around and couldn't. Like
Yes.
that's the problem. They
Like
fell over their own
Parlor,
face. Like
like
Parlor,
Parlor
like
or
anybody else.
Parlay. But here's why I do think that this will get a good old bailout, because it has some users. Truth Social, it's going to be hard for them to develop users. I think this has users, and what I think, here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Truth Social used a Mastodon instance to build their app, and that turned out to be, as we know, Mastodon said, we're going to pull your license because you're not contributing to the open source foundry or whatever. This gives
Mm-hmm.
them an out to where they can buy Gettr's platform. They have a team over at Truth Social or whatever. They have somebody. So it makes sense to buy this and say, okay, we're not going to do the other thing, because they've raised so much money in that reverse merger, in their SPAC, that it makes sense to me that's the only reason, is because it gets them out of having to provide this thing to open source. And I think
And
old
you get
Donnie
the
would.
users, which that are your platform anyway. Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense. But yes, you
Okay.
would be buying just the platform. Again, I still am in the camp that True Social is a grift until it actually happens. It just is. Okay, but to see if anything ever comes from that. But yes, I
Yeah.
would agree with you if I thought either one of these were actual companies, which I don't think either one is. This is
Well.
poorly ran. It was a
Yeah.
bad idea to begin with, and it's
Right.
now shown. You are a big believer in the market. We say it all the
Yeah.
time, right?
No, the market, it
This
killed. It died. Yeah,
this
it's dead.
market is does not cannot support this
So
particular thing.
so let me make something else also very just make the statement. I'm an advocate of alternative social media platforms. I have, I don't know, a dozen Twitter accounts that I started over 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because I just had an inkling that I was going to say something that got me banned, and it happened.
See, that's the
So,
difference between you and I. You have a dozen because you know you're going to say something. I have one that I
yeah,
barely use. One. Okay, that
yeah, I
I
know.
don't need
Yep. So I have many.
alternatives.
Yeah, I know. I need. So I'm an advocate of alternative social media. I like the website Minds. I like the website Float. And the difference between those apps, which Minds has existed for a decade, so they are established. MeWe has existed for a long time. The difference between those companies and the reason they're more successful is they didn't prop up in response to like, we want a specific crowd of people. They existed because they said, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is doing too much tracking. Minds, whatever. They wanted to give you a different opportunity. And I would say to these, this crowd, this, they call them, whatever you want to call them, the red hats, like they have you. This is like that scene at the end of The Italian Job, where the Ukrainian and um,
Marky Mark.
Marky Mark are talking to each other, and he goes, "Yeah, this guy has no creativity,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
You lack freaking creativity. You people
Mm-hmm.
make nothing new. You don't innovate anything." And here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing: when before the information age, I'm sure you sat around in your double-breasted suits and your shirts that were completely ugly and your ties that were too wide, and you innovated something, and that's fine and that's great, and we appreciate that innovation. Well, I don't actually care, screw you. But you contributed to the market, and what happened, it happens to all of us. You got old, and you
Well,
got
Gettr
old.
thought it had found its niche, and finding your niche is important. Gettr thought it found its niche. The problem is it didn't have the forethought to think how I'm going to monetize this
Well,
niche.
right, and if I was them, if I'm any social media company going forward, I'm monetizing through a subscription model, because we've watched companies like Patreon, comedians like Tim Dillon out there making a million plus off of their Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
And people will pay for the thing that they want, and the person to nail low cost subscription social media where you go, you don't have to worry, nobody's tracking you, we're not selling you information. We're not going to change the timeline to get you to stay on the website longer so you get depressed, so you get on the website more. and then we keep you on the website longer, so you hate yourself, so you get on the website more, so you don't talk to your friends.
I think that's a fantasy. I don't think that's
No,
ever
I
going
don't
to
think so.
exist because
Well,
you've already
just
got
like
you.
just like if you told somebody like, well, no one's going to start paying for podcasts, and here we all are paying $3 to freaking Spotify.
Right.
So
No, it's definitely a possibility. I just think that it's a fantasy to get people off of a free service to a paid service that won't
dark,
sell their
twisted
data,
fantasy.
that won't market to them based on that data, whatever. You're asking companies to give up what is essentially their entire advertising ability at this point,
Well,
just for your monthly service. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's
So
it's
I think what
a
happens
hard
is
model.
they bring in underwriters, and they say, you know, this guy's gonna, you know, this company's gonna underwrite. They're gonna sponsor the whole platform. They're not gonna read any of your messages or your data. They're just gonna hope you go buy their stuff, and it's gonna be some huge company. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of ways to do this that is a subscription paid model, and I do think that we're gonna end up there because I think people don't want to lose the connection of social media. Or the only other thing that's going to happen is, I mean, I have a family chat with my extended family, which is muted.
That's
And
not surprising to me at
no,
all. But go ahead.
yeah, and we just use that. Like, we're not going to go on. Why do I have to go on Facebook to look at baby pictures? We're just going to put it on the family chat. And
No. And that is great. I just, again, we've proven this over and over. If you could create that, someone out there would have already created it, and it would be Twitter instead of Twitter, or it would be Instagram instead of Instagram, or it would be Facebook instead of Facebook. Right. Now, all of that stuff, you know, again, just as of right now, there's two things I want to add to this story that I find interesting. One of them is that I've not read something this funny in a while from a story that's about business. It's that Gettr's head of human resources that fired the two executives and the entire IT that delivered the message, right? Because that's what HR is for, also was fired directly then after. So it just a nice circle. You no longer have a head of HR either after getting rid of all these people. So that is just a joy to me as a person that, you know, you like firing people. That's your job. To turn around and get fired. There's no one else to fire, so you're out. The second part of this, or the other thing I want to make sure we get in here, obviously, you've probably known, a week and a half ago, Joe Rogan got pissed off at, which social media platform was he pissed off at that he turned around and joined Gettr?
Twitter.
Was it Twitter?
So what happened is he posted a video of him talking to a scientist, and they took it down. Or a doctor, one of the two.
So he got butthurt at that moment.
Ago.
He got butthurt in that moment and turned around. Well, so I'm going to go to Gettr. The problem is he turned around and go to Gettr, and then Gettr goes, "Oh my God, Joe Rogan's coming over to our platform and going to use it. We need to do something about this." Turns around and goes through this whole media thing where they say, well, Joe Rogan came over and that gained us another 1 million subscribers. Well, Joe Rogan is not a huge fan, apparently, of people using his name without consent, without going with him. So he turns around and comes out and says, hey, this whole marketing thing Gettr's doing right now is fugazi. Is made up. Totally. Yeah. They did not get 1 million people off my name, and if they say they are, somebody needs to show us who those people are.
So he did this is a couple weeks ago. He did a podcast with Tim Dillon shortly after, and he was just like, you know, like the whole thing is fugazi. I'm probably being tracked by the Chinese Communist Republic Party or whatever.
I just find that, again, these are things when we fired our HR director after she fired all these people. We pissed off Joe Rogan in his moment of being butthurt over here and did that without his say. There's a lot of things going on at Gettr.
He's allowed to express his opinion, man.
He is allowed, but that's my point. These are all little red flags in that. Again, I'm going back to is this a real company that is worth acquiring, or is it one of those companies that we should simply just let die?
No, I listen. Let me make that point again. The reason I think they're going to get acquired by Truth is not because Trump World is concerned about bailing out his buddies because he certainly isn't.
No.
But I think that the reason I think it's going to happen is it gives him the ability to leave Mastodon's instance, so he doesn't have to, so that Truth doesn't have to contribute to Mastodon's code base.
You're bringing logic to an illogical situation, and I'm still going with grift, my friend. But anyway,
yeah.
What do we got next?